Hi, my name is Aaron, and I'm the Dungeon Master of the One Shot Wonders. Welcome to the first episode of DM's Corner. In this video, I'm going to show you what I did to prepare for episode 1, what I expect the players to do, and some of the details on how I run my games. So, there are spoilers ahead. If you have not watched episode 1 and do not want spoilers, go watch that first and then come back here. If you want to watch the episode through my eyes and knowing the preparation that I've done, then by all means, join me as we review this episode. So, spoilers ahead. Welcome back. So let's get right into it, shall we? So going into my notes, I'm going to talk a little bit about this episode and what the players are going to entail. But first, I do want to mention two of the resources that I'm going to use in this game. First, the music that I use is from a company called Monument Studios. You might have seen some of their advertisements before. I bought their entire library, which is about 1,000 music, sound effects, and all sorts of good stuff that you can use in your games. As you can see over here on the side of the screen, I do have it divided up into whatever the players are doing to give them that kind of music. So right now at our start, we'll just play the calm playlist effect that I have, and as we kind of go through the adventure, I'll give you a little taste of what's in each of these. So for this episode, the first creature we're going to be fighting is a young white dragon, which is a challenge rating of 6. So I told my players they need to make level 6 player characters. The restrictions I gave them were they could use point buy to create the characters. They could use anything that was available in any of the published materials. The biggest restriction I gave them was subclass. For this, I wanted to start with a classic monster that's been around for many, many iterations. Combine it with something a little bit new. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything came out with a bunch of new subclasses, so I restricted them to just those subclasses, and we're going to see how they play against a classic monster. I gave them the magic items that are appropriate based on Xanathar's Guide to Everything for giving out magic items in a campaign. Going into this episode, there is, since this is geared towards families, I do have to put a trigger in here that there is cruelty to animals, but a note that it's going to end well, and I'll go over that here in a bit on what exactly that's going to entail. My daily experience budget was 16,000 experience, and I was able to divide it into 3 different combat scenarios, and I added a little bit of a trap section, which doesn't necessarily have experience points to it, but is going to add a little bit more on top of that. The adventure is going to begin with a vignette that I'm going to read, and this will be directly from the... I'm going to read this directly from these notes right here. I want to make sure I set the stage right and the players know where they're at. The hook for this episode is going to be a bit of a cliche. The players are going to meet in a tavern. While it's not a raucous, bar-drinking, fighting tavern, it's going to be more of a bed and breakfast type scenario where they all come downstairs and they're going to meet at the breakfast table. The other episodes we're going to do, I'm going to do different kinds of hooks, so maybe you can use some of those in your own campaign, or just see different ways we're bringing the different players together. Once they meet, they'll have a little chance to roleplay and introduce their characters, and then I'm going to give them a little nudge to start the episode and the reason they're all there, which is to meet with the mayor, who put out a notice asking for help for some livestock mutilations and some disappearing livestock on the edges of town. When the players leave the inn, they will be given a small description of the town they're in. They're going to be in the town of Triel. Pretty small village, and there's going to be 4 buildings surrounding a central area. So they'll come out of the inn. They'll see the meeting hall where the mayor's going to beckon them. There'll be a little blacksmith to the side and a small shrine. I expect the players to go to the mayor and start the actual quest. But if they don't and they want to explore the shrine or the blacksmith, I just got a few notes here that will give me something to riff off of should I need to create whatever's in there. Once they go to the mayor, he's going to give them their assignment. Now, in one-shot episodes with NPCs you're likely not going to see again, you don't need to fully fledge out your NPCs. Here, I just give 4 big things that I want to make sure I know. I gave my NPC a name. I gave him what his appearance is going to be, a little bit about what he does in the town and why, what his motivation is, and then the hook. He's paying someone to deal with this problem. So pretty straightforward NPC here. Here I've also got the notes on what I want to make sure he portrays to the PCs, so I send them off in the right direction. One thing I also like to do in my adventures is add a little bit of a red herring. So right here I have put in a little bit of a clue as to what the players will be fighting. I'm going to tell them their hippogriffs and manticores been seen in the area. I don't want the players knowing they're dealing with a dragon yet. So, something kind of like a dragon, but definitely smaller and a lot more common. Give the players an idea on what they might be walking into. So now they're going to leave the town and begin their journey. So with the music, we're going to switch that here. So our journey is going to be a short walk to the first scene of the crime, if you will, where they'll come across some cattle remains. And here's where they're going to start their first rolls. I want to make it fairly easy to give them some of the basic information, so that there's bite marks, there's pierced parts of the hide, so they can deduce claws did that. And then they don't find any tracks, so I want them to know they're probably dealing with a flying type creature. Now, if they roll really well, I'm going to give them one more clue that some of the flesh was frozen before it was eaten, and so the edges kind of show that evidence if they roll high enough on nature. So now they're probably going to be heading towards the Lonely Mountain, and I'm going to give them a little vignette of the fields they're going through. Here I'm going to give them another red herring in preparation for the first upcoming battle. The description I'm going to give is a bunch of overturned dirt, so maybe it's grave robbers in the area, because this is called the Fields of the Dead. Lots of dead bodies, people digging up trying to find stuff. Give them a plausible explanation for what they're seeing. But what they're actually seeing is they are walking into the territory of a bullet, which we'll go over here in a second, but if you haven't heard, that is a land shark. Once they start their journey, I expect them to do a few rolls, definitely perception, and then I'm going to make sure they do survival, because I want to see, do they see wolves? Do they know they're being stalked by wolves? And if they do stealth, are they going to be able to do a surprise encounter on these wolves and set up an ambush or something like that? Depending on how those roll is how this first combat's going to start. So let me take you to the map. And one thing I want to say about the maps is these maps are from the Mad Cartographer. I back him on Patreon, and these maps are great, and I'm going to use these a lot in these campaigns. So this first map is just a general open field map, and I've got 2 dire wolves ready to go. My players are going to enter from the bottom, and I'll show you the walls. All we got here really are 2 walls for these rocks. So I can give a little bit of cover to any ranged or healers, but overall they're going to be dealing with just an open area. Off to the side here, I've got my bullet, who I'll be able to pop up in the middle of the battle wherever is most appropriate. Now, for those of you that are new to DMing or looking for different tips, I do like to make sure I know what the motivation is for each of my bad guys. So first, my dire wolves. Why are they here? Why are they fighting? They are hungry. All they want is food. That means if they get too low in health, they are going to try and run away. My bullet. Bullets are fiercely territorial, and they are going to be fighting anything and everything that is in their territory, including our dire wolves. So they may have some enemies fighting amongst themselves along with the PCs, but we'll see. The bullet is also known to be, think great white shark, and will fight to the death, and the more damaged it gets, the more crazy it gets. So the bullet will fight to the death, the wolves will run away when they get low enough health. Once that encounter is over, they will continue their journey and make it to the base of the mountain. Now here, I don't want them to miss the cavern to the mountain. So in my initial description, I'm going to point them to this oasis protected area in the mountain that looks like there's probably, if something's going to be there, it's going to be there. So that's where I want my players to go. I don't want them to be circling around the back or trying to come in through the top or something crazy. I'm directing their attention right there without any rolls. Where the rolls take place are they're going to be climbing up this mountain, so they're going to have to do some survival checks, perception checks, and stealth checks. I'm hoping to get a few of them down with a few exhaustion points, so they're rolling with disadvantage on checks for the remainder, because I'm not going to be giving them any long rests for sure for this. Then the stealth and perception is going to see how close they get to the next encounter, the entrance to our cave, and whether or not they are seen as they do that. Now, the next part for this, I'll pull up my next map, is the entrance here. And here we have some dragon cultists. So the players, when they first come up, are going to be down in this lower tree area. I've got 2 cultists, and that's what I'm going to use to describe the scene. I've got one cultist hidden over here. I'll show you the walls again. He's kind of hidden behind this landscape wall, so they'll be able to see the trees here, but they won't be able to see past. And then you'll see over here I've got my manticore hiding. So in this scenario, the dragon is just starting out, and he's got a few followers that came with him. The dragon moved into this lonely mountain and found this manticore here who thought it was her territory. The dragon bullied the manticore into guarding the cavern for it, and the manticore reluctantly agreed on penalty of death. So knowing that, my dragon cultists, as cultists are crazy, and they're going to fight to the death. The manticore is not, however, and if it gets too damaged, it is going to fly away and get out of there. So that is my plan for that. Now, how do I get my players to fight these guys? Because those of you that have DM'd before know that players will do things you don't expect. And I would half expect my players to try and subterfuge their way in and start talking to these guys. Which is okay if they're trying to set up an ambush. We'll see what they try and do. But I want to make sure that they fight. So how do I make these guys evil other than outright saying they are dragon cultists? I'm going to give them an action, and here's where our cruelty to animals comes into play. So what I decided to do is, when I describe this scene, is the players are going to walk up, and they're going to see these 2 up here on this ledge luring bunny rabbits over with food and magic, and the other one punting it like a football, which will then bring their attention back down here to a bunch of quote-unquote dead rabbits, and hopefully that will make the players mad, and they will want to punish the cultists for that. Since this is family-oriented, at the end of the fight, the bunnies were just unconscious, and they'll come back and scamper off, and everything's happening. So, just that note in there. Once the players get through the encounter here, they're going to enter the cavern. So here, things start to get a little more iffy. So I'm going to change the music over here to our uneasy playlist. And for those of you that do music in your games, if you add a heartbeat to music, it automatically makes your players, it ups that tension a little bit. And so anytime I want to add tension, I'll throw in the appropriate music, but then just add a heartbeat track over it, and I find it really helps. So my players are now going to go into the cavern. Now here, it's Dungeons and Dragons. They're exploring. We need some traps. So I've got 2 traps. One is to use up a few resources, maybe take away a few hit points. The second is more of an alarm. So I'm going to go over those real quick. Once the players get into the cavern, they're going to come across a torch trap area where they'll come across sconces on a wall. There's a magic rune in the middle they might or might not notice. If they pick up a torch and walk in, spikes will come out of the floor and attack them there. The part of this is, one, if they fall into the trap, they'll get some HP knocked away. Great, that's what I want. If they detect the trap, then the only way to undo it is to cast Dispel Magic. So a magic user is going to at least waste one, or not waste, but use one spell slot to get through this. The other way I expect them to get through this is if none of them have Dispel Magic, is I probably will give them an advantage if they know that there's some kind of trap coming. And what I like to do is give them at least the trigger. So if they walk in, they hear a ka-chunk. What do? And then I'm going to give them a quick response, and they can say jump, dodge to the floor, go to the side. And those that go prone on the floor are probably going to fail their save automatically and get hit with a spike. Those who jump, I'll give advantage on the save so that they can get out of the way. Any dodge to the left or right, I'll probably do a perception check. A lot of it I'm going to do on the fly, so we'll see what they come up with and what makes sense at the time. Next, the players are going to come to a door. Now, those of you that DM'd before know that if you need your players to get through a door, you make sure they can get through the door. A door should never be locked unless you really don't want your players to get through it. So, this door is going to serve as more of an alarm to the dragon on how the dragon is going to react to the players entering the lair. One thing they can do is I'm going to have them, obviously they'll do a perception check, and what'll be pretty easy to see is that this door, just the mechanical opening of it, is going to trigger a rock trap above, boulders fall, and they might or might not get hurt. I really don't expect my players to fall for that. It's going to be pretty easy to see. Then the door's going to be locked, so if any of them have thieves' tools, they can try and get through there. Now, here's the first option. If the players get through the door without making a sound, the dragon still knows someone's entering the lair, because it's the dragon's lair, they know. But they may wonder, are they here to give a tribute? Did the cultists let them in? Is this new cultists? So the dragon's not going to attack right away if they get through silently. If the players don't have thieves' tools or break their thieves' tools and have to force the door, if they successfully break the door down on the first hit, the dragon says, all right, they're not here to give me a tribute. They're powerful enough to break down this door in one hit. The second they enter the lair, I'm going to hit them with an ice breath. So that gives me that option. Our middle option, they don't break down the door on the first try. I'm going to lower the DC. They loosen the hinges a bit. The rock face the door was in is now shifted slightly, so the DC's lower. So they're going to take more hits to get into this. Once they get through that door, the dragon now knows, one, these aren't people that are supposed to be here, and they're not exactly powerful enough to get through a door on the first try, so the dragon is amused and is going to try and play with them a little bit. Each of those, if the players end up talking to the dragon, that'll give them a little bit of an ability to see the lair before the fight actually starts. And how I'm going to get them to fight the dragon if they talk to it is the dragon will agree to pretty much whatever the players want, except for leaving and letting all of them leave. So it's going to demand a tribute of all of their magic items and all but one of their companions. It's going to let one leave to spread the word that this is now the dragon's domain. The rest are going to stay for a snack. I don't expect my players to go with this, so that will initiate the fight. The dragon in their lair cannot be surprised, so they might try and get a shot off real quick, but there's no surprise when a dragon's in their own lair. Just isn't going to happen. There's also going to be two cultists in there. And so let's show you the map for this. So our players are going to land. They're going to come through a hole in the roof, so some of them might be prone the second they come in. They're going to land on this ledge here. They've got a small drop to this ice sheet, which is going to be difficult terrain, and then a small climb up to this area as well. So the dragon's going to talk from up here on the left, and if the players are being attacked in the first round, I'm going to bring my dragon here, and it's going to ice breath this entire area, and then retreat up here and do layer actions and everything from the top. There's also going to be two cultists that were available to... they were down there talking to the dragon and doing whatever dragon cultists do. They're going to be in here as well. Those of you that have DM'd before know that a bunch of PCs against one target, especially in 5th edition, is way too easy. So I'm going to add a couple other things that the players are going to have to deal with to make this fight a little bit harder. Going back to our notes here, the dragon... Actually, we don't need the notes. That was the end of it. So we'll go to the end of this fight, and we will see how the players do. Now, specifically for the concept of this series of plays is if the players happen to beat the dragon, and actually, you know what? While we're here, we'll throw in a little bit of combat music for this final part. So the dragon, I'm expecting the players to get through this pretty easily. It's 2 hard encounters and a deadly encounter based on the tool builder on D&D Beyond. In my experience, players can get through those without much of an issue. So I'm going to have a storyline that's going to bring the dragon back, and then the dragon's going to fight to the death, and we're going to see how long the characters survive. Because of that, there are a few builds out there, specifically with barbarians, that would make a fight especially long, so we'll see if I either outright ban those builds altogether, or come up with a way to overtake that. But what I really don't want to do is I don't want my players going into the battle knowing what they're fighting, and vice versa. I don't want to design my encounters based on the PCs that I have. So when I tell my players, here's the restrictions I'm giving you, I have either already made the encounter or I know what I'm already doing. I don't want to tailor and set this up for you guys even more. I want to, as much as this is not as staged, but as much as this is planned, I want it to be as realistic as possible in showing what a group of bad guys can do against a random group of adventurers, or at least a group that have been brought together to fight as a team. So that is the first episode of the One Shot Wonders. I hope you enjoyed my prep. I will also do an after-action report once the first play is done, and we will see what changes I had to make. So join me and all of us for the One Shot Wonders, and I hope to see you again. Bye.